moving from one meeting to the next. Okay, call the meeting to order. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And just to acknowledge you, the recording has started of this meeting. Thank you, Karen. First off this evening, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Snawas and Qualicum First Nations, and we thank them for sharing their territory with us. And we all live, work, and play on some of the most beautiful parts of our province. Could I please, trustees, have a mover and a seconder for the agenda as presented? So moved, trustee Kellogg. Seconded. Thank you, trustee Austin. All those in favor? And Mr. Kurland, do you want to wave your hand or something? There you go, he's in favor. Carried. Secondly, could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the consent agenda as presented this evening? Mover and a seconder, please, for the consent. Trustee Kellogg, seconded trustee Young. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we do not have any delegations or previous questions submitted, and so our first order of business this evening is the Oceans. We're bringing back to the table for a recommendation for a presentation that we had on a request from the Oceanside Integrated Fitness Society, and I'll first call upon trustee Kellogg, who wishes to make some remarks as she has just recently done a tour.
Yeah, on June 21st, 2024, I went, which was last Friday, I went and seen the facility. Oceanside Integrated Fitness Society operates with 15 clients. They're open Tuesday, Thursdays, and Friday. Current staffing is Caden Leacher, a personal trainer from Brain Body Fitness, and Ryan Watson of Nanaimo Brain Injury Society. He's there because he's involved in a pilot project. Recent board meeting highlights included positive testimonials. Stroke survivor noted significant recovery after unsuccessful attempts with other providers, and a participant with a work-related head injury reported major health and mobility improvements since joining the facility. The facility offers state-of-the-art equipment, some sourced as far away as Quebec, and supported by dedicated staff. The society is currently engaged in fundraising. I was impressed with the facility, the staff, and the impact on the participants. Bill Preston says he met with our school district physiotherapist. I didn't know about this, but Naomi Domes, and she apparently has talked to Tandy Gunn about using room 12 and their equipment for the benefit of her students in the next school year. And there's no question that they're providing really great support in the Oceanside area.
Thanks, Carol. So we have this evening a recommendation that the Board of Education, School District 69 Qualicum offer the Oceanside Integrated Fitness Society use of room 12 at the Qualicum Commons at no charge for a period of 1 year from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, after which time the organization will be required to start paying the full monthly rental fee. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please, trustees? Thank you, trustee Kellogg. Seconded trustee Kurland. Any questions or further follow-up that folks would like? Oh, Ms. Wilson.
I just want to comment, and I do see that Tandy's online here as well. We have a conversation through Naomi around how it can benefit some of our students. And Naomi's time is really precious in our schools. And she has talked about how some of our students would actually benefit from the resources that are there and how we could actually do more group work, transporting some of our students to the program or to the facility or to the resource room or whatever we're calling it, where there's lots of resources to use. So I just want to comment on that comment that trustee Kellogg mentioned around that dialogue, and it has come through Tandy via Naomi around how we can see some of our students benefit from the resources.
Right.
And that certainly would be a nice positive spin-off to have our students. Exactly. Any other questions, trustees, or comments? Elaine? Trustee Young?
Yeah, on my partner's iPad, which I don't even know where the camera is, but anyway, we'll figure that out. Yeah, I originally voted against this, and subsequently, I've seen the benefit of this. I've worked on disability applications as an income assistance and disability advocate, and I know of the Nanaimo brain injury folks. They do awesome work. I think this is a good way to support them, and I'm really glad that the school district is taking advantage of this too, because it's really important that people are able to regain their former status, or at least not lose the ability to be active, because it's just a healthy way to go. So yes, I will be supporting this time.
Thank you very much, Trustee Young. Trustee Kellogg?
Yeah, I just wanted to make, sorry, one more comment, that one of the fellows that I was talking to said that when he got out of the Nanaimo hospital, he was given a list of providers that could help with support for him for his mobility to be increased, and not one of those facilities was still in
No,
that they were
function.
that they were even there functioning anymore. So he is very appreciative. He lives here in Parksville, and he goes to Qualicum, and yeah, his life has changed because of that facility. And that's all I'll say.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We'll call a question, trustees. All those in favor? And that looks carried. Trustee Young, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is our motion to consider this evening on the rental facilities closures. And trustees, you know, this is coming forward from our last meeting. And I would like to move that the Board of Education School District 9 support the closure of both Qualicum Commons and Craig Street Commons to public and businesses use effective July 1st, 2025. Can I have a seconder, please, trustees? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Before I think we take a vote on this motion, has come to light of the last previous after agenda setting and before our meeting today, it has come to light that interested parties are interested to discuss longer term solutions with the district and the board to potentially provide alternate options for this. And so I would ask that the board postpone this motion so that we can fulsomely consider these other viable opportunities, other than outright closure of one or both these sites. My hope is that we would entertain a motion to postpone to the regular board meeting of November. And in the interim, we would be entertaining a fulsome public notice period for parties to give us feedback on other ways, means, or opportunities that could be considered at this site. So could I have a motion, a mover and a seconder, that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum postpone this motion until our November board meeting? Oh dear. I can't see anything.
I'll move.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Second, Trustee Austin. My battery's going. We're all having technical problems tonight. Oh dear. Oh dear. I'm gonna get power. Anyway, oh God. It's frazzled. Are there any comments or questions, trustees?
Yeah, comment, that's why we have a vice chair.
Yeah, There you go. I'm live now and I can see people. Are there any comments or questions regarding the motion to postpone, trustees? Trustee Austin.
Thank you, Eve. Yeah, just for clarification. So we are going to enter into a time before November where we will be consulting with the public, and that all options are on the table and people can come forward with their ideas and concepts. Yes, I'm just clarifying what it's going to look like from now to November.
Yes, that's absolutely our hope and our wish, and that we would have a report back to the board in October, so that we can digest the findings and consider what is necessary come November.
So the public piece, is that going to October or is that going to November?
Well, we have till October to hear stuff, ideas and things. I don't think it would shut off automatically there, but so the board has some report back. It is being suggested it come to October, and then we would put this motion back on the table for consideration in November. Mr. Amos,
Okay.
you have extra comments here to help us out.
Not really extra, but yes, to just add to what you've indicated, that the proposal would be, again, recognizing that we would postpone this for about 4 months so that we can entertain a public notice process, much like we did for French Creek, that basically we put it out in the media and in newspapers and that sort of thing. The aspect of looking for a generative dialogue, looking for feedback from the public on these two facilities, recognizing that we don't want to presuppose that there's not options out there. Recognizing what we've been able to share up to this point is the fact that these facilities are we don't have the dollars, if you want, to be able to support them in a capital nature. And so again, recognizing that there might be some opportunities, some proposals out there, we're sort of just basically allowing for that public period for them to engage with ourselves, recognizing that we would be, in the end, we would bring back to the board in October a report of some sort of what we found, and then it would be up to the board certainly to hear that report and then propose putting the motion back on the table in November.
Thanks, Mr. Amos. Trustee Austin?
Again, for clarification, this is for the two sites, Qualicum Commons and Craig Street Commons.
Correct. Seeing no further hands, I'll ask the question, pose the question. All those in favor of postponing this motion till November? Carried. Trustee Young, thank you very much. Carried unanimously. Thank you, folks. And we look forward to the participation of any and all parties that wish to weigh in on the Craig Street and or Qualicum Commons. Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, hi everyone. I just want to comment on Trustee Kurland's classic classroom background. I appreciate seeing that. It looks good. So good evening, Hayawanit, and bonsoir, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the board for prioritizing the recognition of staff this year. It was great to visit each school site and have employees recognized for their years of service. MATA members reported to the union office their appreciation for receiving the pins and, more specifically, the lunches that were provided. Despite those logical concerns, or some logistical concerns, sorry, such as who is watching the students, but MATA members felt it was a great opportunity for them to share a lunch and recognize each other and be recognized. In working with the Long Service and Retirement Committee, MATA hopes that the board continues to make the recognition of employees a high priority into next year. Secondly, as this year's graduate students are set to walk across the stage this Thursday, Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association, on behalf of all its members, would like to congratulate the graduating class of 2024 and wish them all the future successes. We hope that each graduate will bring with them the educational tools, the social skills, and the confidence they have gained while learning in the Qualicum School District. We hope that the variety of experiences that education has provided will be useful as they embark on their next adventure, accomplishment, or journey. So congratulations to 2024 students. The union is very pleased to see that the government has enacted the Safe Access to Schools Act, which provides school areas to be protected from some aggressive or possibly disruptive protesters. I think we all can agree that expressing one's right is a freedom that we cherish as Canadians and hold dearly. However, it is not appropriate that it would disrupt any learning environment of our students. So we do appreciate that has been pushed forward. Finally, Matt, I would like to wish all the board, senior administration, a wonderful summer full of adventure, relaxation, peace, kindness, social connections, and personal serenity. I'm appreciative and fortunate to live, work, and recreate on this beautiful shared territories of the Stanawas and Qualicum First Nations, and I look forward to visiting many of the Salish territories along Vancouver Island. Specifically for myself, I do like to visit the traditional territory of the Tubasat, which is we call Lake Cowichan. As always, a learning environment that has a healthy, rested teacher ready to lead the day's educational activities is a learning environment that is great for students. Thank you, merci, and haisepwa.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. And Mr. Wycroft, Ewan.
Hello. All right, thank you. QP is disheartened with the cuts directly affecting our memberships going into the new school year. These cuts hurt not only QP members, but children who rely on these services every day. Cutting support staff positions seems to be the easiest cut to some making these decisions. These services will be affected in how they're delivered. We have yet to see a hiring freeze or communication has not been provided with our stakeholders. Our members are not paid salary and will not be working through their breaks or volunteering before or after their shifts. Our members are paid by the hour and many of them are barely making ends meet. Some have to take on more than one job. It's created an issue for employment, retention, and morale. Maybe the employer could have engaged with stakeholders in an attempt to find these efficiencies that would have not resulted in a loss of hours and jobs. Our education assistants have felt the cuts and are going into the new school year with uncertainty. With the cuts to our EAs, we will likely see an increase in elevated behavior and a decrease in learning time, affecting every student in the classroom. We don't feel these cuts are in the best benefit of our learning community. The board needs to ask why EAs are not staying. Limited hours offered to our EAs along with behavioral challenges do not create retention. The funds were found to staff the summer works crew this year. Where there's a will, there's a way. I wish the board had the will to staff the rest of the cuts to QP support staff in the same way. In regards to the closure of the two commons, while we can appreciate the board's concerns regarding capital costs, closing these sites to public will impact many of our community's vulnerable members. Organizations providing supports and community engagement for families with children with disabilities, adults with disabilities, low-income families, as well as a number of childcare enterprises currently use these spaces. The board seems unsure that there are many alternatives for these occupants, but we have yet to find any examples to accommodate the number of occupants being displaced. The impact of displacement of so many programs cannot be measured. We are saddened to see the district continuing in this direction, as it will likely have a detrimental effect to the community. I'd like to end on a positive note. I'd like to really acknowledge Brenda Paul for all of her hard work and years of service. Over the last 6 years, she will be missed by many. She's brought so many positive aspects to the job. She's always given her best and always had a full heart and really done a great job. We look forward to working with the new HR director and continue to foster a positive and respectful relationship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Rycroft. District Parent Advisory Council has sent their regrets for this evening, and but they say, don't worry, we'll see them in different places and spaces as time goes on in the new school year. And we congratulate the executive for such a wonderful time and working relationship that we've had with them. And we will look forward to the DPAC committee or executive forming its new executive next fall. Action items 2024-2025 student fees, and this is page 22 and 23 in your package this evening. And I will turn this over to Dr. Jory.
Putting my hand up unnecessarily. Thanks, Chair Flynn. There's no briefing note on this, primarily because the fees have stayed intact over the last few years. There's been no changes. While they are not identical from school to school, they're certainly similar and within a range. I will say this though, all of our schools are feeling the pinch as inflation has eroded their buying power, and selected not to pass those costs on to parents at this time, and may do with what they're collecting currently, and of course offset by the Feeding Futures money in regard to supporting food purchases at and through the school. But it is a place where we're probably going to do a review for next year, as well as if we get some relief on the budget front. Ideally talk about putting some money back into those school supply budgets. That's certainly a topic of conversation lately as everybody's looking at their books. But this year wasn't the year, hopefully next year. And with that, I'll just turn it back to you and say, this is a status quo fee sheet, and we're looking for your support.
Thank you, Dr. Jory. Could I have a mover and a seconder to the motion to approve the fee schedule? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Second, Trustee Kurland. I'll just put in a shameless plug, although it's not consistent through all the schools. There is a school cooking fee. I would hope that possibly some creative ways could be used for our Feeding Futures monies to be allocated to that. It's a substantial sum of money. And I think, as I have spoken to before, if the kids all know how to cook, then they might be able to, be creative in how they create their own meals and things like that. Trustee Austin and then Trustee Young.
Thank you for that, Eve. I would absolutely support finding any monies we can to help alleviate some of these school fees. I say this every year. It's not just the school fees, but parents are expected to have their children with indoor and outdoor shoes. There are so many costs associated with starting to attend school, and of course they're compounded if you have more than one student in school. And absolutely, during these inflationary times, people cannot afford it. Perhaps I can ask Jillian or Rudy to speak to some programs that may help parents access some financial relief for some of these fees. Are there any?
Associate Superintendent Wilson.
There's a couple of things that we do in terms of the school supplies. We have had the backpacks donated for school supplies for a number of years, and there's a varying number of people that do the donations for the backpacks that have the traditional paper, pens, pencils, and those kind of things. SOS also has a program that provides support for families that need access. And I know many of our schools, if a child comes without the clothing or footwear they need, we do provide that, and our schools are really good at knowing who the families are that need that extra support. I also want to remind the board that we had 81 families on our backpack program this year. I got some complaints last week, and they were good complaints. They were complaints about the amount of food that was going home to the families that would help them into the summer. And so normally they have 4 totes. There was over 6 totes going home to each of those 81 families. And so the complaint was, these bags are so heavy. How do we manage and how do we help get that into one vehicle that gets delivered to the families? So a good complaint to have, but it is the community and the school district that are looking at how we can best provide those kind of supports to families that that need it. That sometimes it's really hard to come into the town to look at some of those services. But there are different places. I also want to remind the board that we're
Oh, you're on mute. You're flipped into mute by accident.
sorry. We are in a unique position where we have a district social worker, and again, that's to commend the board on recognizing the value of that particular position. The social worker that we have in our district is constantly called by families, by schools to say, how do you help connect this person, this family to community resources? And so it's, again, an additional service, additional support we have in our community through our schools to be able to outreach to those community services that can transition into the summer and certainly throughout the year.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson. Trustee Young.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that for most of the elementary schools, there's a kind of a bulk ordering of school supplies, which is one of the things that families, have to struggle with if they're doing it individually. So I just encourage the elementary schools who haven't done that, and there aren't a lot actually, to consider that, because I think it does save money overall. I'm seeing just a couple of schools that haven't done that. And beyond that, I know that when I was looking at people who were here a little while ago, because I'm on an iPad, I can't see everybody, but we did have someone from SOS here, so they might be able to speak to some of their programs as well. And I think it was Susanna, if she's still around, but I don't see her, so just a thought.
Thank you, Trustee Young. I suspect she was participating for the facilities piece.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion on the table, and could I call a question? All those in favor? Lots of heads nodding, hands up, folks. Thank you very much. Carried. 2024-2025 school impact plans. Dr. Jory, this is page 24-25 in your package with
Thanks,
lots of reading
Jeffrey.
behind it.
Lots of reading behind it, yeah. And for those of you that are just looking at the agenda package for the first time, you notice this does have a briefing note which explains our transition to the new SET framework that matches what we've done in our strategic plan. And it'll speak to the quickly growing alignment between what we are doing as a district and what we are doing in our schools and programs. The plans themselves are not included in the package. That would be many, many pages, but they will be available on school and program web pages, websites. Some of them have already posted. Some of them are waiting for this meeting to occur to post, but by next week, they'll all be up. And so should the board approve these, all of them will be available to review. And you too can be a part of what these schools and programs have chosen to focus on, what part of the strategic plan that they are pursuing with that focus. I did add an extra appendix on here. It was a little bit of an activity that I did, and I was quite pleased with the result. And that was essentially taking all the sets from the schools, just the schools, and not the programs this time, feeding them into ChatGPT, helping ChatGPT sort, because Give, Grow, Belong, actually have a lot of similarities, and artificial intelligence picked up on those and have a little bit of trouble kind of discerning between the three of them and needed some help, right, which is understandable. And then asked it to do a summary of the work in the school district. And then I was quite delighted to see that it took all those pieces of information, the different vernacular that individuals used as they depicted the work that they were intending to do. And it kind of landed like it did in the summary, and it felt very much like a summary of our district strategic plan. And so I wanted to share that and say, look, I think we're getting that alignment that we were so intent on getting, and we're getting it quite quickly. So that's really nice to see. And of course, The board has had a chance to review these. They're in a shared folder in our teams. And so I hope that you've had a chance to look those over and that you have found them interesting and that you have a clearer window into what's going on in our schools and programs that adds to the information that you received during our presentations on the 14th, and that you will be happy to approve these plans as a package.
Thanks, Dr. Jory. I certainly enjoyed reading them. For the first time in a bunch of years, I really enjoyed looking through them and definitely could see the alignment. It was exciting. So could I have a mover and a seconder, please, for the Board of Education to approve the school impact plans for 2024-2025 as previously presented? Trustee Kellogg, Trustee Austin. Questions? Any further comments, trustees? And I think that's great that they'll be up on the website ASAP, hopefully, and that parents and staffs and things can have a look at their leisure over the summer as to the visions of the schools come the fall. Seeing no hands, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Carried. Now on to information items this evening. Superintendent's report, Dr. Jory.
Me again. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Esquelle, bonjour. Well, we made it, or near enough. The finish line is finally in sight for our 23-24 school year. Thursday is the last day for elementary student attendance. There will be some assemblies, activities, report cards, as we used to call them, learning summaries, as we call them now. The typical early dismissal, and then staff will be off to meetings and to clean up their spaces. For those in secondary, yesterday was the last day of regular classes. Clean up and catch up the graduation ceremonies on Thursday, along with all of those important end-of-year activities that we see across the system, and cleaning up and getting ready for what comes next. On a related note, Trustee Austin and I were able to attend the past graduation ceremony last week, and we're once again inspired by the great work that's been going on there under Principal Autumn Taylor's leadership. After making me cry last year, Trustee Austin elected not to speak this year. And I was able to keep my message from a government official, as Autumn so artfully described it, to under 3 minutes, not to ruin the positive vibe. Well done, everybody. In my previous reports, I've often talked about attendance, both related to students and staff. It has been an ongoing discussion and frequent source of concern since the days of the pandemic. In regard to, I do have access to provincial data, and I can tell you that ours looks a lot like the rest of the province. I've said this a number of times. It typically tracks at the same rate, or in some days a tick above, or a tick, or sometimes 2 ticks below. These numbers all indicate a lower rate of attendance than we were used to seeing 5 years ago. So, those anecdotal observations are not wrong. In conversation with the principals, we are recognizing that kids are not necessarily coming back on their own, and it is time to get on the same page while we up our level of response. This is going to mean increased communication, more letters, yes, and certainly more phone calls and personal conversations. It means supporting the give, grow, and belong aspects of the strategic plan and really getting at the barriers that we hear about whenever we talk to students. It means working on culture, and there's some great work going on in recent days and weeks. It means accessing the possibilities that our new aligned secondary timetables will bring. It means a lot of things, both subtle and profound, and we are on it. This really has emerged as the #1 conversation across the district. I've also been working on the content for the Fessel report over the last few weeks. As Director Terpstra said, using the Jory vernacular, September Peter will be pleased with all the work June Peter did when the due date comes closer. I will say that June Peter is also quite pleased with a number of things related to improving student outcomes that are hard to ignore when they're on the screen in front of you in black and white. Of course, graduation rates are up and among the very best on Vancouver Island. Literacy and numeracy results are also up, and again, likely more representative of what our staff and our students can actually do. More importantly, where there are gaps, we now have improved information at our fingertips to plan and support our responses. We have a strategic plan in place, and alignment with that plan across the district has emerged well ahead of my own predictions, which is really encouraging. Also in support of that plan, and the 2 newest operational plans that support it. We had 30 NRTs, the NERTs, emerge in school through the second half of the year. With countless positive stories being shared, we're excited about expanding participation next year. In making this expanded VESL report, 5,000 words so far and growing daily, I've also enjoyed describing many of the structures in the Qualicum School District, both new and long-standing, that contribute to student success in their own way. These include the work of our own teaching and learning team, our relationships with the community through the early years table and the Oceanside Collaborative Response Team, our new pre-K program, and the enhanced transition strategies for students heading from elementary school to high school. All the great work to expand childcare opportunities and support for the Feeding Futures program deserve mention, as does our continued efforts to move towards truth and reconciliation, response to Bill 40, and much, much more than that as well. Taking stock feels good. And though I will stop short of thanking the ministry for this legislative requirement, I will confess that I am enjoying it more this time around. Director Terpstra and Associate Superintendent Wilson will update you on professional learning and other happenings around the district as they do. I want to close by thanking all staff for their efforts this year. Our students had a much richer experience this year as a result of your planning, your hard work, your commitment, your support in providing amazing places for our students to learn. I've already spoken about fees and school plans. I'll stop there for now. Have an amazing break if you're able. Thanks, everyone. Sepqua, merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Dr. Jory. Trustees, any questions of the superintendent and his report? Seeing none, I'll send it over to the tag team of Associate Superintendent Wilson and Director of Instruction Terpstra. Who's going first this week?
I will. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give a little summary of our year in review and to echo some of what Superintendent Jory was saying. Learning's always moving forward and improving. And as a learning organization, we learn more about our learners every year. And we also learn more about how we all learn. This year, the district had provincial assessments and district assessments, grade 3, 5, 6, and 8, and 9, along with a kindergarten snapshot. We had FSAs in grade 4 and 7, graduation assessments in grade 10 and 12. Teachers were engaged in looking at the data, planning focused action, and creating learning. 2 examples of these were all of our grade 9 teachers were involved in a series of 3 full days with Leighton Schneller in the learning rounds, one of which was hosted at Ballina Secondary. And then we also had a numeracy series with Carol Fullerton for our 4-5s and our 6 to 9 teachers, which we are going to continue into next year. The teaching and learning team were coaching, co-teaching, and supporting learning across the district, focused on numeracy and literacy, supported by SEL and physical literacy. They are also set to start the school year with a fulsome summer Pro D and offerings in August. I was really excited 2 weeks ago, the career education team hosted its Train and Trades and Trade Sampler Orientation Night, where 60 students with family members were introduced to the programs and university life from the VIU faculty. I'm also happy to announce our team is also running a summer career exploration program where we have 20 students enrolled for the summer. We celebrated, and apologies to Trustee Flynn, who didn't quite make it with us, the dual diploma immersion graduates this week who are leaving and will celebrate their dual diplomas on Thursday. But we're also welcoming for the first time ever 2 grade 8 immersion cohorts at Bolinas as well. This year was a shifting from student voice to student agency, where not only were we listening to students, but co-creating actions in many forms, including the Indigenous student voice, and led by Principal Katie Marin, who I see is online. We also had a student services review, led by Principal Tandy Gunn, who's also online and asking students about their learning. We had a community of practice, and we also had a district student voice, which Jillian and Lynette Woods led this year. Mostly, and then most of our schools also have student voice groups in them. So we're listening to kids and co-creating ways that we can improve our whole system. Today, the District Drug and Alcohol Committee, and agree with Superintendent Jory, we got to think up a new name for that group. But that team reviewed its work this year and looked at ways to improve our wraparound support to make our restorative processes more responsive to students and families. And I also want to acknowledge the work of that team, which includes our social worker, our district drug and alcohol counselor, principals and vice principals, mostly at secondary, and our committee team. In support of our learning plan and handbook, we also have an assessment plan, a communicating student learning guide, as the district is about to send all families home this year with a summary of learning under the new reporting order. Next year, we will launch our learning framework, which defines literacy and numeracy centered on inclusive and culturally responsive classrooms in all of our schools. And finally, as we come to the end of Indigenous History Month, and we recognize National Indigenous Peoples Day last Friday, I want to close by reminding us all of this statement on truth and reconciliation that should guide all of our work and is included in not only the learning plans, the assessment plans, but our new learning resources policy. Education plays an important part in reconciliation, and learning should first reflect the perspectives and knowledge of the local Snetlhalis and Qualicum nations, then of local Indigenous students, the Indigenous peoples of Canada, and then the Indigenous peoples from around the world. Thank you, everyone, and have a great summer.
Thanks, Mr. Terpstra. Busy year. Whoa. Associate Superintendent Wilson.
There's nothing left on my list between the two
took
of them.
It all.
No, I will. Just a few things that I will highlight as well. It has been an amazing year. It's hard to believe that we're in June and we are about to recognize. Somebody asked me how many grads do we have crossing the stage, and I think it was sitting around the 308-ish. And I always say the ish because I actually witnessed one of the principals walking down the cap and gown to a student today that was just finishing off that last assignment. Are you going to walk on Thursday or not? And the youngster smiled and said, I'm going to do it. So those where the issues are, and there's the acknowledgement again to the work that our principals do to make sure that they're wrapping around that support to make sure our youth do walk across the stage. Speaking of graduates, also the pre-K program, we're in the process of collecting surveys. We had over 100 families participate in that pre-K program. My quick look at the surveys, all of the families highly recommend. I think there was one didn't say highly recommend, so we'll dig down deeper into that, but highly recommend the program to happen. They really got a lot from the program, talked about children knowing what they're going into, knowing what to expect, familiar with the school. And that's exactly what that program is about, is really streamlining the transition between the early years going into kindergarten. It gives an opportunity for our teachers to take a look at who the kiddos are and what supports may need to go in there. So I want to recognize that. I see that Ross is online as well, coming up in this next couple of weeks. I think it's only a week away. I keep forgetting it's the end of June. We have our first international group from Kazakhstan coming for our summer program, which is really exciting for us. So I want to acknowledge the work that Kevin and Ross have done to promote other countries coming to our community and enjoying what we are blessed with all the time living in this amazing place. Speaking of amazing place, the community partners that Peter talked about in terms of the work that we do, that we are working towards having an integrated child and youth team. There's been lots of meetings around that, what that looks like for our district. We're also embarking on a community partnership work with Going Through OWN, which is the Oceanside Health and Wellness Group, to look at the rights of the child And in our community, we're calling it the rights of the child and youth. We're recognizing that we don't need to, we want to acknowledge our youth and the at-risk youth that we've got in our community. So that is a community group that met last week, looking at what our data is telling us from all of our community partners, where our needs are, and then looking at how we advocate for additional resources and supports within the community. So more to come on that as I learn more about it. Our enrollment, it is that time of year where we're enjoying and celebrating what we've done this year, but also planning for next year. And you know that we've gone through our rounds of postings. We look at where our enrollment is. We know that we have changes in enrollment, and we look at what support staff we need in schools when September comes around and where we need to add different resources and different supports. I also want to acknowledge some of the work that our HR department has been doing to support how we make sure people know where they're going in September as much as we can possibly. And that's been a huge task. I want to acknowledge the work that Brenda Paul has done with that, and Tandy Gunn to support the system that we're in our second year of piloting. Which has been an agreement between the QP and ourselves to look at how we look to getting as many hours as we can out there, but we also recognize we need to make sure we have some hours that go out into the system and land where our students land. We have a number of kiddos still on cross-boundary, for example, and we can't put them into schools at the moment. We have to put them on hold because we know our enrollment at that particular site might be close to being at capacity. We never use the word full, but we don't want to be moving cross-boundary kiddos back to their catchment schools in September. That's never a great thing to do. The work that Sheila Morrison has been doing lately, as you know, part of our budget process did reduce one management position, one exempt position. We did make a reduction in that category to be able to do some of our budget work. And Sheila Morrison was reassigned to assume the responsibilities of OBLT. Along with her other work that she's doing around the early years. She's now been in the job for 2 weeks. We've submitted 2 applications to look at extending daycare pieces. We're again working with community that will also address trustees Austin's concern of where do we families going community. We're promoting our breakfast club that we're doing on Saturdays through OBLT at Family Place Munchkinland. We've also revitalized our Storybook Village, where we can have families come to Storybook Village in the summer months and do some free program activity in partnership with people like the library, RDN, SOS. And so that's up and running again this summer. And so Sheila's been learning in a learning curve. It's not a curve, it's a straight diagonal line, I think, in terms of how she goes about this great collaborative work. I too want to acknowledge the Indigenous Day. Friday, our Principal of Indigenous Education sent some amazing photos around that I'm sure will be circulated through newsletters somewhere, but the work that their department have done to make sure that we're acknowledging and celebrating and recognizing. There were some wonderful events that took place in the district. Busy year. And in closing, I too would like to say thank you to staff. Thank you to our teachers. I was at one school today. I walked into a classroom and they were on their way to the beach to celebrate year end. And I won't tell you that they had water pistol material in hand, ready to go and experiment with them. And I looked at the teacher and I said, "You're brave." The children and students were very excited about celebrating their year end and shared with me how they were going to collect water without going into the water from the tidal pool. So there was some science behind that, I'm sure. But a recognition to all staff that make learning fun, and also look at how we make sure we're continuing to develop as leaders and learners in no matter what capacity we work in the district. So have a great summer, everybody.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson. I see your hand up, Trustee Young.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on that list. I'm not sure that you talked about the learning grants, anybody, which was my highlight of the month. Of course, my other highlight is the fact that June is also Pride Month, and so for me that's pretty important, and it's all about inclusivity and social justice. There have been a lot of events at the schools around that. I think the one and the one that Peter sent to us this morning on Teams, I just want to acknowledge KSS. because it's not a school that I often get to go to, but the YouTube that came out this morning is about 6 minutes, and I think it was just really brilliant. And what engaged students. You want student engagement, then this is a really good example. Beyond that, I do want to kind of echo what Ms. Wilson said about the early years table. It has gotten life again, and it's something that I really appreciate. I think it's a fabulous table hosted by Oceanside Building Learning. And the Saturday morning program, when I was volunteering there, it was all about the dads coming with the kids, because often they work on Monday through Friday. And how fast the children can get them to believe that they are fairies, or dress up in gowns and so on and so forth. I loved it. It was so much fun to see these fathers interact and play with their children. The other thing that I just wanted to acknowledge was Oceanside Wellness Network. It's really good to hear that they're getting some programs together again. I know they had a non-market housing forum a couple of weeks ago that I was unable to attend. But Ms. Wilson, this initiative sounds really, really good. It might actually get me to volunteer again, but no, I'm not going to volunteer for anything more. So thank you very much. It's been a very busy June. Did we have Indigenous grad this month too, or was that last month?
No, that was this month.
Remember it, but that was fabulous too. Last year, I think we had about 4 or 5 Indigenous students that came. This year, the stage was full. It was just amazing. So whatever we're doing good work for our students. Thank you very much.
Dr. Jory.
Yeah, I was remiss in reporting out on that as an example in my sharing, as did my team, but we did do a bit of a report out on that at the Constant Contact. But yeah, to Trustee Young's Mark, we had a really nice evening. The past staff and students provided the food. We had a great turnout. It was really well organized and really well run. And yes, we had, I think I counted 20 kids on stage. Katie's online. She could tell me the exact number. I think I counted 20 kids on stage. And for graduates, of course, there's a recognition of students across the school district. Romar, Indigenous families were there to celebrate and recognize. So yeah, no, great evening, and really enjoyed it.
Fulsome reports. Thank you all. Now to move along in our agenda, Finance and Operations Committee of the whole is in your package, pages 26 to 28. But we do have a motion coming out of this. But Trustee Young, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'll just do a little synopsis of our another fabulous finance and operations meeting. Who knew that routing software, whichever one you want to say, could take up a half a meeting?
Half an hour.
People's interested questions on how this software that we bought to kind of organize our buses better. Who knew it was so fascinating? But there you go. The other thing is the track is coming along very nicely. We just got drone footage the other day, flying over the track. So it's kind of neat to see. We're doing kind of day by day progression so that we've got lots of material to send out what went on. And that date, we're hoping to get it done by next winter, which is pretty exciting. Lots of stuff here that has come forward. The Accessibility Planning Committee, really good information on the district's website there. So please take a look at that, because accessibility and inclusion are really important. And I will then move, here we go, that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve the 2025-2026, wow, major capital plan submission as presented.
Moved by trustee Young, seconder, please. Trustees? Trustee Kellogg, are there any questions, trustees? As an offshoot of the Fins and Ops Committee work of the whole work. Seeing no hands, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Carried. Policy Committee, trustee Kellogg, you have a few here, 3 or 4 or 5, pages 26 through to 56. So off you go.
Okay, 14A, administrative procedure to board policy 617 section and assignment of exempt staff, leadership staff for information. That was just for information. Board bylaw 1. Oh, were there any? No, there wouldn't be any questions. Are there? Okay,
No.
moving forward, board bylaw.
We might want to say what was changed. We might want to say that.
Well,
Oh.
it's, the information is
Contained.
yes.
Yeah, in the report.
Yeah, it's in the report. So board bylaw 1, Board of Education recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 approve first reading to adopt the revision to board bylaw 1, Board of Education.
Moved by trustee Kellogg, seconder, please, trustees. Trustee Kurland. See no hands.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry,
and-
trustee Young.
Sorry, I was just trying to second it, that's all.
Oh.
Okay, sorry. Call the question. All those in favor? This is first reading, so we do see it again. Carried. And board policy 107.
Use of educational property for childcare, that the Board of Education, School District 69, approve first reading to adopt the revision to Board Policy 107, use of educational property for childcare. The information's page 44 to 46.
Thank you. Moved by trustee Kellogg, seconded by. Thank you, trustee Austin.
If you're hearing that, my dog's tooting her thing in the back, her toy. So if you hear a tooting, that's what it is. Okay.
Wait a sec.
Board
Whoa, I gotta call a vote. All
okay.
those in favor on board policy 107, first reading. Thank you very much. Carried. Onward to board policy 700.
Okay, safe and caring and inclusive school communities, that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve third and final reading to adopt the revision of Board Policy 700, safe, caring, and inclusive school communities and its attendant administrative procedure at its regular board meeting of June 25th, 2024.
Moved by trustee Kellogg, seconded by trustee Young. It's third and final reading, folks. Seeing no hands, all those in favor? Carried. And board policy 804.
Physical
Trust-
restraints and seclusion of students, that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve third and final reading to adopt the revision to Board Policy 804, physical restraints and seclusion to students and its attendant administrative procedure at the regular board meeting of June 25th, 2024. The information's on page 51 to 56.
Thank you, trustee Kellogg. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, trustee Austin. Third and final reading. All those in favor? Carried. And last but certainly not least, always a colorful report out with links and all. Education Committee of the Whole, trustee Austin.
Thank you. So yeah, I always encourage people to read the report because there is always such interesting conversation that happens at our Ed Committee. So please take the time. I'm just going to mention 2 things. One is just on a personal note, I'm going to make it a personal crusade coming into the new school year that we are going to explain what the acronyms are. So far in this meeting, there has been FESL, NERTS, FSA, SEL, ISP, and thank you, Jillian, for actually saying what OHM is. The rest of you guys, you got work to do.
It's
So,
pages when you
I
photocopy.
will be on that we say what it is. So for people that are listening. The other thing is we had a wonderful presentation from Greg Muirhead and Martin Jedlick around the idea of having a board authorized course. It's the Summer Explore Your Career Options, and details of that can be found on page 61 to 67 of this agenda. I think it's very well laid out, and it was very well explained, and I think there's a lot of merit, and some students will get a lot from it. So having said that, coming out of our education committee, there is a recommendation to the board that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve the board authorized course Summer Explore Your Career Options 10.
Moved by trustee Austin, second by trustee Kellogg. And you have a question, trustee Young.
Not so much of a question, but I just wanted to kind of underline a little bit about what trustee Austin said. I think this course is really well laid out. And I suspect Mr. Terpstra might have had something to do with it. It looks like it might have some of his signature on it. It's also an area of my interest, career development for students, and I mentioned it at the meeting, but I was involved in a lot of research around career development a number of years ago, and what we were seeing is that children, before they go into puberty, often know what they want to be when they get older, and then puberty kind of jumbles things a little bit, and then it takes them often until they're in their mid-20s to figure out what they want to do. So I think this is a really important course, and I'd really like to see a junior course in grade 6 or 7 where we could start them on this this journey in a more formal way. I know we do this, but in a more formal kind of board authorized course way. Thank you.
I would say more like 80s, Elaine, before not 20s.
You're still looking, are you, Barry?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, seeing no further hands, call a question for the board authority authorized course approval. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Committees of the whole are all, it's a bit of a stretch over 2 days, but I think it's all well worth our time to delve into some things a little bit deeper. We're moving on to trustee items. Trustee Austin posed a question and a little bit of a preamble last meeting to have input or thinking on our part regarding our meetings of the board. And we stuck in with that just for people's reference, the trustees meeting schedule. This could change on this discussion. We would have to make some amendment to bylaws if the regular board meeting changed and then camera changed, but committees of the whole meetings are certainly flexible. So trustee Austin, do you want to do a little opener to this and then folks can jump in with their comments?
Sure. Absolutely. I think it's always worth us revisiting our meetings and how they're conducted, when and where they're conducted, and revisiting that. I'm personally would like to propose that we look at perhaps changing some days and times. I would prefer that we don't stack meetings. That was done in deference to one of our past trustees and to accommodate her work schedule. But looking around the province at different school districts and how they conduct their committees of the whole, and I do hope trustees took some time to look at other school districts, they're often on different, maybe Tuesdays of different weeks. So perhaps we would have policy one Monday or one Tuesday or whatever day. And then the next week it would be Fin and Ops, and the next week might be education. And then the following week would be our regular board meeting. I would also like people to consider changing the time of some of them. I think having Finance and Ops at 10:30 in the morning is very challenging for both parents, students, and staff to attend. Again, looking at other school districts, all of their committees of the wholes, the earliest I saw them start was 4 p.m. And some started as late as 6 p.m. So I would propose that we look at having our meetings at the earliest at 4 p.m. The only one I was reconsidering on is the education committee, because we do get student attendance. And part of the reason we get student attendance is because they might take the last 15 minutes out of their day to come and attend our meeting, and then they're still able to catch a school bus. So despite the fact, and so our ed committee goes 2:30 to about 4. That does enable some staff to come. It is an unfortunate time for parents who are often picking up their students, but I would hate to see our student numbers go down because of that. But the other committees of the whole, I would like us to consider changing the days and the time. Perhaps look at either, again, at having them in person, or again, I would ask the board to reconsider and look at recording our committee of the whole meetings. So I'll leave it there for now.
Comments, trustees. Trustee Kellogg.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I have looked through different districts, and quite often policy is lumped in with something else. Not all districts have committees of the whole that are laid out the way ours are, where there's education, there's finance, there's policy or bylaw. Yeah. So I think sometimes that the policy committee is short enough that it could piggyback with something, but in the event that it is not, I've given consideration to recording the policy committee meetings. I feel that the first year I felt very self-conscious about my approach and not having a lot of knowledge about how it's being done. But if I was doing the policy committee or the bylaw committee again next year, I would be open to having it recorded. And if that was not the case, I still feel that it could sometimes, I know that the finance committee goes quite long, sometimes the education committee goes quite long, where policy is not always as long as they are. So I don't know if that could piggyback with one of the other committees, or, I mean, I'm willing to have it recorded.
Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Trustee Young or Trustee Kurland? Trustee Kurland.
Yeah, I have a concern. I just wanted to raise it. I saw the beautiful picture that was posted about the Bolinas track, and it's really thrilling to see that aerial view. But being an ex-commercial pilot, I'm also aware of the damage that could be done if a vehicle, unmanned, a UAV contacts an airplane at moving whatever speed, with the twin Navajos would be 170 knots. My plane was 100 knots. It would do a lot of damage. And it's not that far from the airport. A vehicle coming in at 29 could be on a straight in approach. It looked to me like that elevation of that photo was probably taken from about 1,400 feet. But that's a guess. Phil didn't know either. So I would suggest that, in the interest of safety, because it is a concern, if a plane hits something like that, it's going to be a mess, that at least, that the person who's doing the aerial photographs very generously or offering to do that would at least, do it at a certain time and file a NOTAM, which for Julie's sake means notice to airmen, So that so
You're
that
owning money.
NOTAM would be published information similar to, you know, people who are parachuting in a certain area, and that it would at least try and alleviate some of the safety concerns, because, you know, eventually somebody's gonna get hit by one of these UAVs. It's not going to be a pretty sight, you know. Anyway, just a thought from an ex-aviator.
Yeah. That was more to the comments of the reports of fins and ops. Do Trustee Young have comments to the topic at hand, rethinking meetings of the board?
Yeah, I do. I think the question of recording is difficult for me, because our recordings are not our official minutes of meetings. What is official is the report that goes into our package, and then the minutes that come the next time at the regular board meeting. So I do have a problem with that. From a governance perspective, I think it can be a little bit difficult in terms of people being clear about what the official record is. So if you can take that one away from me, and maybe it's just because I'm a governance nut who reads Robert's Rules of Order during the day, not to put myself to sleep, but to learn. But if you can take that one away, maybe I could go along with recording. The times of the meetings, I'm fine with changing the times. My only concern is around our staff members, our senior staff members, and the fact that they, you know, they're on a salary. I get that. I mean, I used to be at school from 7 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. So, you know, but I was one of those. But you know, I want to be careful of their time as well. So I think 4 o'clock might work well. I think with policy, I mean, when I was chairing that committee, we were going through the entire policy manual, and so the meetings were taking the full amount of time. So that's another thing that, you know, maybe we need to revisit.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
so
always required
that's-
to go. We're always required to go through the whole book in our 4-year terms. So
Well,
that's
supposed
kind
to,
of
yeah.
yeah.
You're
No,
supposed
but
to.
that's what we're doing. But some policies don't require any additions or changes or things like that.
Well,
So,
I think
but
it would be
it's
appropriate to have that conversation at another time. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. Let's take a look at moving stuff around. And the other thing is, I do like Trustee Austin. I do find that when we piggyback meetings, especially on long weekends, when we have a 3-meeting day, and then I have a second 3-meeting day following because of my other work, I find that difficult at my age, my advanced years. Thank you.
Dr. Dorian, I think we've got some things to chew on here, but we won't be making a decision this evening. Dr. Jory.
Yeah, and appreciate the sentiments. Trustee Young, don't worry about us. Though, I mean, if the board wishes to move these to the middle of the afternoon, the late afternoon, or even the evening, we're certainly up for it. So whatever works for you and your view into what you think will serve the purposes of the board in regard to transparency. I think that the recording conversation is a separate conversation. And you know, if the board wishes to revisit that, that's certainly fine too. I don't believe this is a decision that needs to be made this evening, but I would like to point out that whatever decision is made, you're going to need to plug it into a bylaw, which you can do. But I'm going to recommend that you take it offline and float some times and dates and maybe have some votes, and then bring that back to the next meeting and see if we can get to a final decision at that time. Does that sound all right?
I don't believe our committee as a whole are in bylaws, or certainly our in-camera regular boards are in, but I don't know as we stipulate time and dates
we
or
don't.
I don't think
sequence. We
we've-
just describe what it
No.
is.
We
and
just
what it-
described them, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
that's right. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're
I think the
a little
public
much
board is
more.
the only one that's got a time.
Can
For you
I
to
just
move on.
ask if people are leaning toward perhaps just having, you know, like picking Monday or something as a day, and having like one Monday, one committee, the next Monday another committee, or
I think I'd
peop-
like senior staff to weigh into
Okay.
some of the scheduling pieces that then prepare for the agenda, which goes out, like we have them the week before, but if they're staggered 2 and 3 weeks out, depending on what committee it is, I would just like sort of some ideas of, Mr. Terpster's muttering there with it, but he's on mute. But it just some input by senior staff. If we did one a week for 3 weeks, you would definitely, have to align with when the budget or the board package is put together.
Yeah.
And is it too far out to have discussed something 2 weeks ago
right.
to have
Right.
any impact on, the outcomes of a motion or any of the recommendation? I mean, I think it might have impact finance and ops because there are deadlines and things like that they have to meet, but maybe it will align itself. But I think we have a
Okay,
little
well-
more work to do on it.
Okay,
And
and
so
from my
I think-
perspective, I would like to see just one meeting a day,
one day. yeah.
whether it's 2 a week or 3 a week, and later, if possible, in the day to try and accommodate more people being able to attend.
Yeah. Yep.
Except for maybe Ed committee, that one's there.
Yeah,
I really like the students
Your
there.
committee that you're chairing just has to stay the same.
That's right.
Okay. Folks can maybe put something in Teams or whatever as a chat about it, and then some conceptual timing piece from senior staff would help as well. Last but not least, certainly the retirement event. My thanks to my committee. And it was noted by Mr. Wood, the appreciation for long service recognition, and the retirement event was our culminating event a few weeks ago. Great stories, great, I think, reception by the retirees, their recognition with a very special print done by Jesse Ricalma, I think is greatly appreciated by folks. We had 14 retirees, although there were more actually retiring. That was how many attended. And I think we all had a lovely time giving our thanks to these folks as they enter into their new chapter of their lives. And it's a tradition, I think, in this district that I've long thought was extremely important in our scheme of things of recognition, as Mr. Wood would say. Retirement is a milestone as well. So that would be, and this group is meeting this Thursday morning to recap and set the stage for next year and things like that. So no idle work here. We got to keep going on this topic, and I certainly appreciate the support of the committee, which is Carol, Mr. Wood, Mr. Rycroft, and Ms. Furman from Arrowview are the and Brenda Paul and Denise Kinney from the HR department. Super supports, and we do have a lot of fun, and we did switch it up this year, but I think it was very successful in the long run. So no new or unfinished business, no board correspondence.
I got one comment. Eve.
Public question, Pierre. Oh, sorry, got Matt ahead of you, or Matt just giving a hidey ho. Okay, go ahead, Barry, and then Matt.
Okay, so regarding, change up of the meetings, we have to consider that, there's a lot of meetings that are organized in the district that occur regularly on certain times. Like I think staff meetings are usually on Wednesday, if I remember right, or madam meetings,
Yeah.
the executive,
Tuesday.
we're on
Yep.
we're on Thursday. So we have those considerations that, we don't just have random times. Most of the other people's, in our district their calendars are full. And I think that it's hard to necessarily find times and places for our meetings to be in there. There's a lot of meetings that are happening all the time for people, just as a consideration.
No, good point. Good point. And I'm sure that's what Mr. Wood was going to bring up. Right?
That was one of the things that says public question period. So can I make a statement, or do I need to reframe my statement as a question?
I think we're flexible enough.
Okay, well,
You
I
can make
didn't
a
want to bring
statement.
that up. Thanks, Trustee Kurland. I just want to talk about the Tuesdays. Typically, it's about 3:45 to 6. I know 3:45 to 6 are typically the executive meetings, and that is every first and second Tuesday of the month. And I do wish that I could have one meeting a day. I know some days I've stacked up with those meetings, and then I have an exec meeting, and then we have the board meeting. So I'm really full tilt with that. The other piece I just wanted to acknowledge was in the discussion about student fees, and just want to recognize that many teachers support the public education system with their own money, and the government's even recognized this. But you have to spend $1,500 and you get a $150 tax credit. So I'm not sure how great that tax credit is, but it is at least recognized that teachers spend money to support initiatives in their classrooms. And so we'd like to get away from that, obviously. And I was appreciative of Superintendent Jory talking about relooking at some of those fees next year. So that was nice to hear. But I just want to acknowledge that there are teachers that do pay quite a bit of money to bring educational experiences to students in their classrooms, and in the terms of resources. Thanks. And enjoy the summer, everyone.
Yep. Seeing no further hands, I too would like to also just highlight quickly and congratulate Brenda Paul on her retirement. A valuable resource to our district that many of us have crossed paths with her, and find her work to be top notch. And as she has many sort of little acronyms and things, you either tie a bow on it or reference certain buckets, or many charming ways of being kind and inclusive of all of our staff. And I think from the bargaining days that I've worked with her, she has always wanted to truly understand the situation, not just pay lip service to it or otherwise shuffle it under the rug. She always very much wanted to understand and was receptive to all comments and concerns and to learn about what the process meant to kids. Always she would refer to kids in the focus of many of her look backs and envisioning as to where either language and contract or things like that, where did it affect kids. And she was very profound in that way in conducting her work and very professional. So I would like to thank Brenda for her time with us and wish her all the best in her retirement. And I hope everybody has a safe and enjoyable summer with family and friends. And please, have some rest, take some time, meditate, or whatever folks need to do. And we'll be back. I know we'll have a big operations and maintenance push on for them to get everything fixed, ready, and roaring for next September. But hopefully everyone will have the time that they deserve to enjoy the summer break. So thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening, and have a pleasant rest of your evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.